Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Holly Pritchard, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Midshipman Daniel Whitford. This evening, we warmly welcome Pauline Gribble, representing the Naval Association of Australia, ACT section. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Kedron Wavell RSL Student Liaison Group, visiting from Kedron, Queensland, and Geelong Grammar School, Toorak campus, visiting from Toorak, Victoria. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students and visitors who are able to do so, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed at the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to able seaman Lance Rosevear. Lance Rosevear was born on the 24th of March 1916 in Devonport, Tasmania. One of 5 children born to machinery salesman Thomas Rosevear and his wife Lillian. Lance grew up in Devonport and attended the local state high school. He went on to work as a clerk before joining the Royal Australian Navy in June of 1935 for a period of 12 years. Allocated the rank of ordinary seaman, Rosevear completed initial training at the naval base HMAS Cerberus. He was posted to HMAS Canberra in April of 1936 and gained his seafaring experience on routine cruising of home waters. Rosevear was made an able seaman a year later and remained with Canberra for a further year. In June 1938, he was posted to the light cruiser HMAS Sydney as a rangefinder, joining his brother, able seaman Jeff Rosevear. He spent the month which followed engaged in ordinary duties and training exercises along the Australian coastline. When the Second World War broke out in 1939, Sydney was berthed in Fremantle. The ship was immediately drawn into action and began gunnery and torpedo exercises off the West Australian coast, as well as patrol and escort duties. Rosevear and his comrades saw out the remainder of the year on patrol work in the Indian Ocean. At Christmas time, they were ordered to return to Australia and dock at Sydney for a period of leave. Sydney returned to Western Australia in early 1940 and continued patrols along the coastline. In May, Sydney made its way to Egypt and joined the Royal Navy Mediterranean Fleet. After Italy joined the war, Sydney was involved in patrol sweeps searching for submarines and minefields. In June 1940, Rosevear and his comrades were involved in a shore bombardment of Bardia before taking part in the battles of Calabria and Cape Sparta in July, during which Sydney famously sunk the Italian cruiser Bartolomeo Collini. By the time Sydney returned to Alexandria, it had forged an impressive reputation. For the remainder of 1940, Rosevear and the crew of Sydney continued a routine of anti-submarine sweeps, patrols, convoy escort duties, and shore bombardments in the Mediterranean and Adriatic seas. In early 1941, Sydney returned to Australia and berthed in Circular Quay in February with a triumphant reception from the crowds which had gathered. Rosevear and his comrades were granted a short period of leave, during which time he married his sweetheart, Olive Kilworth, at St Andrew's Church in Launceston. After a short honeymoon, Rosevear returned to sea with the rest of the crew. In late September 1941, Sydney began operating off the West Australian coast, escorting convoys from Fremantle to the Sunda Strait in the Netherlands East Indies. Arriving at Sunda Strait, Sydney would hand the convoy over to other Allied warships, which would then continue escorting the ships to Singapore. On the 11th of November 1941, Sydney steamed from Fremantle, escorting the troopship Zealandia, carrying troops of the Australian 8th Division. 6 days later, Sydney handed the troopship escort to HMS Durban before commencing the return passage to Fremantle. On the afternoon of the 19th of November 1941, Sydney sighted what appeared to be a merchant ship some 200 kilometres west of Shark Bay on the coast of Western Australia and closed to investigate. Sydney signalled the ship to identify itself while continuing to close with the mysterious vessel as she did so. The ship replied that it was the Dutch steamer Strat Malacca, but in fact was the heavily armoured German merchant raider Cormoran in disguise. Cormoran had already sunk 10 unsuspecting merchant ships in the Indian Ocean and taken another as prize. Sydney drew closer, demanding that the ship identify itself with its allotted secret call sign. The captain of the German raider, Theodore Detmers, did not have the response, and with Sydney at about 900 yards on his starboard beam, or point-blank range for naval gunnery, he ordered the immediate hoisting of the German battle ensign and opened fire. In the battle that followed, both ships were badly damaged. Sydney, torpedoed and ablaze, sank during the early hours of the 20th of November 1941, with the loss of all 645 crew members on board, including able seaman Lance Rosevear and his brother, able seaman Jeff Rosevear. The crew of Cormoran abandoned ship before the raider was scuttled. Approximately 3/4 of her crew survived to become prisoners of war. With no grave but the sea, the Rosevear brothers and their comrades are commemorated on the Naval Memorial in Plymouth, England, among thousands of others who have no known grave. Lance Rosevear was 25 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his memorial plaque is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember able seaman Lance Rosevear, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They have no grave but the cruel sea. No flowers lay at their head. A rusting hulk is their tombstone, a fast on the ocean bed. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.